thumbs up. It's like magic, incredible. Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Muller. I'm the VP of Strategy and Communications at Mindful Materials. I'm really excited to be here this morning with all of you. The classic logistics and housekeeping first. We should have about 45 minutes, maybe, of presentations, and then we were holding some time for Q&A at the end. We imagine with, a lot of participation, a lot of you have a lot of questions. So as I think maybe Jen noted in the chat, use the chat to share your questions. Myself and Nicolette and Jen will be monitoring that, scouring it for your great questions, and then sharing those with the presenters at the end. If we don't get to any major questions, we'll try and follow up afterwards. We are recording this webinar. It's always a great question. And we should be distributing that recording by the end of the week so you can share with other people. If you are watching this as a recording now, hello from the past. So sorry, I had to. So I have really been looking forward to this webinar. I'm a little biased. I work at Mindful Materials, obviously, but I'm really not, just tooting our own horn at Mindful Materials when I say that I think it's so powerful to see more and more work like this in our industry, in the buildings industry around materials, this kind of true collaboration. I think that it really signals to me a new era of work, certainly of urgency in this work, and of leadership. And I think, leadership and a desire to get past our perspective of this is our way or the highway, and recognizing that together we are able to do so much more and head towards a shared vision for a healthy and thriving planet. We can go further, faster together. I can tell you, Annie, you can jump to the next slide if you want. From my experience at Mindful Materials, we get this question a lot. That's like, so are you competitive with this organization, this organization? Is your tool competitive with this? Should we choose this or should we choose this? It is always an and. We're really never trying to compete with anybody. I think that our role, as we see it in the industry, is to really kind of bring together all of these disparate pieces around materials, and help to align them so that together we can have more momentum. It's really like an ecosystem, right? There's a role for everybody in supporting a better future. And I think in particular cases, right, there's a not competing, and then there's actively aligning and really working together to meet those shared goals. And this is one of those cases with Mindful Materials and HBN. So we really wanted to have this webinar to really send out this message that this is this is a shared process, what we have and what we are developing with HBN. And for us, how important and powerful and complementary that partnership is. So, Gina will do an amazing job explaining really HBN's role and Informed and what it's intended to do. But, HBN plays this incredible role as a trusted partner in guidance and research and the distillation and functional application of that research. And this Informed tool, as she'll talk about, is really created to fill a lot of the data gaps that are out there and help people early on to make these better decisions about your materials palette, and really know better what's happening, right? And for Mindful Materials, we're trying to sort of help amplify those types of messages. And then also the Common Materials Framework plays this very functional role in organizing and clarifying data by providing this consistent structure and connecting that. And then I think what's also neat is that what we're doing with the Common Materials Framework is also designed to unlock some of the data that has been in these certifications or that gets lost along its path to AEC or owners. And then, we'll talk about future opportunities for true sort of technical integration, but really complementary roles here in terms of our organizations and how we work together. And at a high level, we'll be talking about this and reiterate at the end, but what HBN is really trying to promote and Mindful Materials is really these like holistic considerations, right? Not just there's carbon over here and there's health over here, and all of these pieces are really connected, right? And so HBN and the Inform tool are really trying to help designers, owners understand the data better and fill those gaps to make early decisions better. And then Mindful Materials and the Common Materials Framework plays this complementary role of organizing the data and helping people to really choose better products at the product level with the data that they need, and to sort of support and reward the manufacturers that are doing that optimization and disclosure. So that's my kind of introductory summary of these tools, our organizations, how we're coming together, and this concept of and, not or. And I'm excited to introduce our guides to a better future today. And Gina Saganek is the CEO of Healthy Building Network. I'm sure many of you know her. Incredible leader, and I think translator, right? I think you see yourself as really a translator of research and information, which is fantastic. And Annie Bevan, the CEO of Mindful Materials, mover shaker, possibly doesn't sleep with everything that she does. So Jean is going to kick us off by talking about Informed and the role of HBN, and then Annie will wrap things up for us, and then we'll move into Q&A.
I guess that's my cue. Hi, everybody. Let me share my screen. All right. So yeah, hi, I'm Gina. I'm thrilled to be here today and excited at this opportunity. You often see Anjanette Green or Teresa McGrath or Rebecca, Roberto, Ryan, many of our other staff. So I'm excited to be here today and get this opportunity with you. We're excited about product optimization. And as Alex was saying, we too come from this and approach. We have this saying, this phrase we use at HBN, better together, recognizing we can't be in competition because we have a planet to save and we have our health to change. And that's going to take all of us doing what we do best. And so we've come at this since 2000, HBN, when Bill Walsh founded us, as bringing the science and being an advisor and bringing solutions to the table. Our vision is that all people on the planet thrive when the environment is free of chemical pollution. We do the research education and sharing the impacts that all the chemicals and materials have on our lives and the lives of the planet and the nature and the water and all the things that are affected that we are part of as a human species. I have been with HBN for about 8 years. Some of you knew me in my past life. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a toxicologist or the deep researchers that we have on staff. I'm a real estate developer. I developed affordable housing for about 20 years and started to get really intrigued on what I was building the buildings out of, because I was really trying to break barriers and do things differently in the energy and water and other sorts of sustainability realms. And I was floored when back in 2012 or so, when I signed up to be the first affordable housing ever to register for the Living Building Challenge, that products are made of things that poison us and the planet, and we don't always know that. I thought I knew a thing or two about the buildings I created, and so I started to get really passionate about how we integrate this idea of safer materials and how we translate it so that folks like me without a chemistry degree and avoid chemicals and that conversation as much as I can. How could I help translate that science into actionable solutions and bring that into the workflows and the standards and processes that we all face as in the real estate mode. So my slide, there it is. So why are we introducing Informed in the way that we are? As we do, we step back and look at the research, and a couple of years ago when HBN turned 20 years old, 20-year anniversary, I was asking the board and the staff, are we fundamentally making a difference? We were celebrating transparency, which, back in the day when HBN was formed, it was unheard of, for manufacturer disclosure. It was just not a thing. So we were celebrating 11,000 plus HPDs, lots of certifications, declare labels, C2C, and there is real leadership and real change. And we were really floored about that. And then the question was, well, what does that look like overall? Because we still heard from people that we were having challenges in picking better products. So when we looked at how much was disclosed compared to all of the products on the building materials market, it was a very, very small fraction of all the products we would tend to use in a building. And even within that, there's a variety of quality and disclosure within that, quantity and quality. And so the question was, how do you make an informed decision when the product you want to use isn't disclosed in one of the certs or the programs? So we started to really think about, well, how do we create an option for all this gray space so that we fill this fully? And how can HBN really move into that space so we can continue to support the manufacturer disclosure movement in that green circle, that tiny little green pinhead, I like to say. So that's where we sat back and said, well, how do we rethink the information that we have to be able to scale this in a way and to get everybody engaged and everybody excited, whether or not you're a chemist, and whether or not you have the resources within your organization to really dig into all of these amazing details that many of you have figured out for the bulk of the industry. So we took our red to green guidance that some of you in the past have called home free or hazard spectrum or red light, stoplight things. We've brought that into a new brand called Informed, with scientific rigor and easy to use. We really looked at the concept of modeling. Like in the days when I was doing real estate development, we started energy modeling because we found out that picking better HVAC equipment ended up not solving our, energy use problem, because we missed the orientation and the massing and the envelope and all of the things that make much bigger changes than one piece of equipment could fix. So this idea of how do we bring this information in earlier in the process? How do we make sweeping changes? So then as we move into what specific product you're using, then you can worry about the details there, but you've not overlooked, like in energy, oopsie, got the orientation wrong, the envelope's wrong, and then that's not going to save you. So it's quite simple. It's a scalable approach to transition to safe and circular building products. We look kind of at this worst in class to best in class ranking, and it's a pretty easy concept. So don't worry about the little words here, because the idea is we create categories of products like flooring or insulation or countertops. We look at the types of the products that you use, not manufacturer specific, although that information comes into our analysis. Because the idea is, just like we found out in the chemical work, that if we go chemical by chemical and we don't look at the entire class, well, we're never going to get there because the classes or families or types, chemicals of products, of food, of a lot of things have similar characteristics. So we can make profound decisions by taking a first step in avoiding things that are red and at the bottom, preferring things that are yellow, like green and dark green, so yellow and above, and then taking a step up, even if you can't get all the way to yellow, an orange is better than a red. So that is the overall idea, that we start early on at charrette when you're working on your sample closet in your office, your specs. Understand the types of products you're using and start there making decisions. Why it has scientific rigor, we pull in all kinds of information and we look at the whole from extraction to end of life. A lot of the materials certifications are about finished products. So you might be able to understand kind of what the use case, but you don't understand what's happening installation, manufacturing before. You don't understand if it's part of a system that ends up in East Palestine, Ohio, that a train derails and poisons a community. You don't understand if your product is made in Cancer Alley and lands on your job site. So you'll understand that whole life cycle as we are giving that red to green guidance. So it's pretty easy in practice. What category do you need? Look at the list of the most typical products that are being used today in that category. Move over to, lopping off the bottom on the reds. Try to look at the products that are in everything above red, and then identify for your specific use case what products are in green and yellow. And sometimes oranges will sneak in there, and that is scientifically better than the red. The not so secret is that as you then move into finding an HPD, going to Mindful Materials and looking through, the common language and the specifics from the manufacturer, if it's red in the beginning, it's going to be red later. So you might as well learn that early on and remove sliding into a mistake, because there are products with HPDs, EPDs, all kinds of labels that disclose information, but it doesn't necessarily give you information of whether if it's good or bad. It's great it has an HPD that's disclosing as much information that's on there. So you need to know, and we can help provide as the step one before you get to the specific materials, get to a better palette. I always say this is, and you guys, if you've heard me talk about this before, this is not unlike the food pyramid. When I was in first grade, before I could read food labels, I knew where candy fit. I knew that wasn't supposed to be on my dinner plate. I knew that spinach and broccoli and things like that were healthier. There was no confusion in that. This is the same way that I often say, this would be like going in the candy aisle, and sometimes we're debating whether a Hershey bar is better than a Almond Joy, and we pick an Almond Joy because it has a coconut flake and a almond in it, and saying it's healthier. That's the wrong question. If you're sitting in the wrong aisle, the red aisle, you're going to end up with something. We're asking the wrong question, and in order for magnitude of change, we have to ask different questions. What's the best flooring? What's the best insulation? When we looked at the methodologies, and you can read that online, if you are interested in the 6 classes or certain red lists or other sorts of approaches, this aligns. If you're trying to get away from plastics and fossil fuel-based products, this aligns. The worst stuff, all of those are the worst things, they go to the bottom. So this is very consistent with the ways that a variety of these programs are working. So you don't have to feel like this is going to take you off course. This will actually help you move through better. So this is what it looks like. We're not adding yet another tool or an idea and something else. We're expanding the system with a complementary and a holistic approach, because we knew people weren't sometimes finding the data, sometimes not being able to understand the data. Thank you, Mindful Materials, and everybody helping to figure out all of that and creating a common language. Or it just was too complicated. So we can always start with this step one. This is what we're saying, that you can start early. You can start at charrette, find the better products, eliminate the reds, prefer yellow and green as much as we can. It'll take time, and then go find your disclosure. And hopefully you can find it. If you can't find a specific closure, you can at least rest assured you're stepping up into better products. The power couple piece of this is really important. So we're creating this system of checks and balances, and kind of a flywheel approach, because the independent science is one data set we're forming here. And then together with manufacturer and disclosures, we believe it will be a flywheel effect, and it'll help both. As more and more manufacturers disclose and disclose completely, we will be able to bring that data in. Right now, the team looks at all kinds of data, including patents and all sorts of things. That the reality is, we know what's in these products. We know what's in them from start, origin, and manufacturing, and their supply chains, all the way to end of life. We know how long they last and how quickly they're actually demolished and thrown away. Why this all matters? Sometimes I remember thinking about the projects I was doing as, this is one project at this corner and this small, percentage of the products I was using. There's going to be 2.5 trillion square feet of real estate being built on the earth by 2060. So the UN says. First of all, let's make sure that's not the case. That doubles everything that's on the earth today. So this is daunting, or like I like to say, this tells us we have the power as a sector to change the health of the planet. If we get this right, per the science, per Teresa, per our folks, if we move to products that are yellow and above, we will literally change the health of the planet, because we have removed the worst of the worst. I hope you are all following the 9 Earth systems. I hear climate change, climate change, climate change. Everywhere I look, every newspaper, every funding source, every metric I see is about climate decarbonization. Yes, that is necessary. Climate change is one of 9 Earth systems that we have to keep within the planetary boundary, so as not to temporarily or permanently affect life as we know it on Earth. So the Stockholm Resilience Center put out this information. The green is the safe operating space. We have crossed 6 of 9 planetary boundaries. We have to bring in other data beyond climate change. We have to deal with that. And the novel entities, sadly, that researchers and scientists sometimes use words that the rest of us don't understand. That means chemical pollution. That means all these chemicals and plastics. They chose novel entities for a whole other reason. If you want to read the report, have fun. But this is where it's falling off the slide. And it's expected to triple in the coming years because no one's paying attention to it. Building products are the second largest use of plastics, behind packaging, and growing, because that's where the fossil fuel companies are pivoting now that we're electrifying our buildings. So we cannot electrify our buildings and build them out of plastic and think that's going to change the 1.5 degrees or our health. Chemicals are actually this biosphere integrity. That's about biodiversity loss. And chemical pollution is one of the main causes of that, more so than the atmosphere, than the climate. So we have to start thinking about these interconnected systems and bring this idea of optimization forward. Detox, decarb has to be the way forward. So HBN has our overarching business plan that we need a deep clean on this earth. We have to get to a path to planetary health. And that's why we introduced Informed to be complementary and insert in all of these great systems that we've already created. So by 2025, we want to reveal data and start to shift away from reds get it up to yellow and above. We want to get then by 2030 a commitment on detox and decarb, and land in 2030 where very few of us are using red products, which opens up space for innovation, hempcrete, material, mineral-based paints, all kinds of things that, because of our love for luxury vinyl tile and many other things, we're not opening the space for manufacturers who are doing some really cool work with new products that we're not giving a chance. So this helps that. And then by 2040, we can get to safe and thriving. You can take action with Informed. Right now, we do have an online resource. You've seen in the past product guidance, sort of the red to green approach, but we've also created this interactive tool because WELL has been piloting now the residential rating, and it's part of the integrative design process. So they needed a tool that's linked to the master format, so it's a little bit easier to connect when you're working on specs, and then report out. So it's part of the WELL pilot, and we're talking to some other of the standards to do some integrative design credits there so that you can get early on your palettes. We also do direct consulting, advising to help create metrics around this, show how many pounds of something or other you avoided. And so the floor plans you see up above are some of the work we've done with a healthcare institution. And then we provide some reports to show this is sort of the baseline of your work today. This is how you can start shifting if you're looking at moving to step out of the red products. Think of it as what HBN does best. We bring all this data in. It can be visualized and put out in many different ways. It can be integrated in many different programs and create solutions for you in many different ways. So there's lots of ways. So you can already start taking action, and people are already taking action. They have been for years. Many of affordable housers are well on their way on this. I had to throw this in there because this isn't just lip service. So this is me back in 2015 with Paul Melblom of MSR Design when I was building the last project I did as a developer. I didn't pick LVT, luxury vinyl tile, for probably the first time ever or for the longest time. I picked a product that was yellow for flooring. It was one product, one building, eliminating more than 1 ton of toxic chemicals. That is where the power of all this comes. And yes, it did cost $1 more a square foot. I know there are sometimes, not all the time. Some of these things don't cost more. It's a myth. Sometimes it does. However, if I would have got some of my friends and we bought in bigger volumes, we could have overcome that $1 a square foot. And also, I didn't want a product that was made in Cancer Alley. So that was an easy decision for me to even pay that $1 more square foot, because I wasn't going to participate in that anymore. We see people doing all kinds of things, like designing their unit square, their footprints to meet the dimensions of the linoleum floor planks they're going to use. So it decreases waste. What a brilliant thing. Decrease waste, decrease cost. It all works better. We can do this as we do it together. So the big thing we're asking for everybody to do, step up from red, move into your preferred, specific product, use mindful materials to help you get there. And we will get to a place where all people on the planet thrive when the environment is free of toxic chemicals. That's all I have. We can't hear you, Annie. You're on mute. Sorry.
I just had such a great intro. Thank you, Gina, for all that amazing insight. And it's so wonderful to hear your experience and your passion. As you started to go through that presentation, I could feel you getting even more intentional about the ask, moving everyone away from red, and sharing some of your experiences there. It was really great to hear. And I also just want to say thank you to HBN's entire team, as well as the Mindful Materials team. We have been working really, really hard, knowing this industry is a bit scattered, and it's not clear what everybody's roles are and how each of our organizations can sort of help move the earth and health forward, us doing less bad for that earth. I have been incredibly optimistic after moving into the role as the CEO of Mindful Materials to have such amazing conversations with the CEOs of other NGOs throughout this industry. It is getting clearer. I hope you all are starting to see some clarity. This is a start to a clearer relationship and how HBN and Mindful Materials are collaborating together to support us all in holistic, sustainable decision-making when it comes to product sustainability. And we do need both. We need science and research and data developed by research and science. And we also need a common language that can work within industry to drive more transparent data. And that is what Mindful Materials is working on as a part of this work and role. And we're really here. I think Mindful Materials has gone through a tremendous evolution. And I know we've talked about this evolution. We launched our new 3-year strategic plan earlier this year. So we're on year 1 of 3. But we have really switched gears away from just being a library tool to really unifying the industry to scale this work, because we need data of quality and quantity in an organized fashion to actually be able to measure the holistic embodied impacts of products and projects. And so I would ask everybody to take a second if you could actually visualize the ideal world that we'd be living in which case I see owners and architects easily able to access impact-driven information. So an easy button of how to actually tell which product is more sustainable in a way to compare holistic sustainability in an online tool where you're already designing or making product level decisions or purchasing decisions. In this tool, you're also actually able to quantify the holistic embodied impacts of products across 5 impact categories of climate health, human health, ecosystem health, social health and equity, and circular economy. You can compare a project to project. You can compare a portfolio, and you can actually track how product level decisions affect the entire embodied impact of a project. For manufacturers, you're getting asked for the same information in the same way from all of your customers. You have third-party certifications that digitize data, and you're working with 1 to 2 data management platforms that actually you can press a button and you can share this holistic sustainability data from your hard work of your third-party certifications into this interconnected data ecosystem that feeds into these software tools that your customers are using. You're also going to get a feedback loop. You got a sale because you invested in this aspect of sustainability, or you did not get a sale because you didn't invest in this aspect of sustainability. These feedback loops have been missing. It's been something I've been talking about for a long time in the industry. And this is the passion and the background, in which case Mindful Materials comes from, is to really enable this world where sustainable product decisions can be measured and information can be shared up and down the value chain to inspire more optimization. This is the world that Mindful Materials is seeking to create in collaboration with all of our partners. But this is where the intention of our work comes from, to actually see this world come to fruition. We're trying to enable it to come to fruition by actually a functioning ecosystem that this is occurring by 2026. Right now, though, we're in a world where there's a lot of conflicting momentum. Everybody's asking manufacturers for something different in a different way. And if I ask any architecture and designer on this call or owner who's ever here, how would you define a sustainable building product? Every single one of you would have a different definition of that. We are in a world where there is so many eco labels and certifications out there, all well-intended, just there's too many and no one knows where to start, how to respond, or how to accelerate. And there's certainly not a lot of time in enabling a world where we're actually focusing on optimizing products as opposed to just responding to requests and continuing to focus on transparency. There is then no way to actually click a button after you actually have started and obtained certifications. There's no way to share data. There's no way to have this data organized. There's no way to baseline and benchmark what a holistic, what is the holistic sustainable story of a product. And there's certainly no way to measure that at the project level. This is causing massive market confusion and really decelerating the movement that all of us have been working on for a very, very long time to try to accelerate for the very reasons that Gina shared. So Mindful Materials, as a nonprofit, is seeking to combat sort of this high level confusion, this sort of discrepancies throughout the market. We're seeking to create a common language for what is a sustainable building product called the Common Materials Framework. We're then seeking to create an aligned ask using the Common Materials Framework that everyone can adopt by honing what are the most important data points that we need industry to address through what third-party certifications. And we want then that third-party certified data of quality. We want this aligned ask to drive more quantity of data and this third-party certification data of quality to flow through the industry and find its way into workflow tools. And we are needing to do that by engaging all of us, having all of us come to a place together to, again, agree on this common language, align around the ask, drive more, and agree to this interconnected data ecosystem so that we can ultimately measure the holistic embodied impacts of products and projects. So I'm just going to drill down into what do we mean by the Common Materials Framework? What do we mean by this aligned ask? And how are we supporting an interconnected data ecosystem? We've made a tremendous amount of progress in 2023. And obviously, this is year one of a 3-year strategic plan. I'm excited to share what's coming in 2024. But this is sort of the download of where we've gotten to. And of course, wanted to share again how informed and this work of Mindful Materials is going to support an even greater level of an ability to make decisions in a solidified process. So again, we were trying to figure out how do we define what is a sustainable building product. So in 2022, we launched what was called the Common Materials Framework. And we had taken information or looked at the AI Materials Pledge, which is the first place the industry actually came together to align around architects and designers on really what is a holistically sustainable product. And they put this out in the AI Materials Pledge. We want to find, use, and specify products that address climate health, human health, ecosystem health, social health and equity, and a circular economy. However, we as an industry, though it's fantastic to have these impacts, these categories defined and thinking about holistic impacts, not just tunnel vision on one impact, but really how do we define then what does it mean for a manufacturer to address climate health or to address human health or social health and equity? And that's why the Common Materials Framework was created. Mindful Materials brought hundreds of stakeholders together up and down the value chain. The materials specialists, from owners to architects, designers, to contractors, to manufacturers, to our peers in the NGO space. And what we did is we created a framework for how to define and think about and talk about what is a sustainable building product based on these 5 impact categories. And so we started out with these 5 impact categories, and we said to ourselves, how do we break these down into different sub-buckets? So how would one actually define human health? How would one actually define climate health? And this is, we came up with 18 different sub-buckets that would break down the 5 impact categories. And then we looked at, okay, what are all the eco labels and standards out there, and how do these map to these buckets and sub-buckets? And then we said to ourselves, all right, a lot of these eco labels and standards are actually telling us different things. How do we categorize even further? What are these eco labels and standards telling us? Is it telling us that a product is transparent about their impacts? Or are they actually working on and showing and verifying that they've in fact optimized their impacts? So we came up with the TACO spectrum. I think it's very important. And ultimately, the Common Materials Framework is a structure for all of us to think about sustainable products, sustainable building products in the same way, broken out by 5 impact categories, 5 buckets, 18 sub-buckets, 76 tacos. And then I think the most important part of this effort that we did is actually break down what is the data within the third-party certifications that matter. What is the information that then can be rolled up into how one could actually measure the total human health impact of a project? And so that's what's so powerful about the Common Materials Framework, is that it takes it breaks all these eco labels and standards down to just the data point, but can roll it back up into thinking about impact. This is the technical work that we think needs to get done. We're doing the science work now to bring the science into storytelling in the future, so that we can actually work together so that everyone in the industry can understand what a sustainable building product is and work to make better decisions moving forward. So the Common Materials Framework is pretty extensive. So we have basically all of what it breaks down to is that we've been asking manufacturers for thousands of individual data points across 150 eco-labels and standards that roll up into these 5 impact categories. This is the common materials framework, and it's quite extensive, as you can see. But this is the common language, and we needed to be inclusive but stringent on what is included here, in order for us to have just a baseline, a benchmark of what is the framework of a sustainable building product. We see this work, this common language, and this data breakdown to be the foundation. I think a lot of us want the ideal. We want this easy button where we can actually just look at and see just by a number or a color, this specific brand is the most sustainable product. And we want that to just be an easy thing for us to look at so that we can actually score projects on how sustainable they are based on the products that they've chosen by brand. We don't see a world where we can ever get to project scoring without a common way to talk about sustainable building products, a framework, a common language, and a way to find this data overall. But before we create an interconnected data ecosystem, we also have to gain alignment. So we created this common language, and in order for this to be adopted and widespread and actually utilized, we need to create an aligned ask. So how do we integrate the common materials framework thinking into practice and process? And how do we drive more data of quality and quantity into the market? It's through alignment around a common language, a common definition. If every owner and architect ask every manufacturer for the same thing in the same way, think about the intentional power of that louder voice that we can bring to the marketplace. And so we need to get more focused. There's a lot of power in an aligned ask, but how can we rally momentum around what a consistent ask is? And so Mindful Materials created a subset of the industry, which we're calling the Mindful Materials Catalyst Forum groups, where we're bringing owners and developers and architects, designers, contractors, and manufacturers all together to create resources for the industry to leverage this and expand upon this work. These are all leaders in the industry who have been working for a long time in sustainable materials. And we brought this group together in 2023 to create what is the aligned ask, leveraging the common materials framework for the industry at large. And these are the groups that you can see are a part of the forum groups. And so what the forums did was they took the common materials framework and they said to themselves, what is the most important information that we think the industry can share with us now or very soon in the future? Because we can't say, okay, we want every single data point within the common materials framework. We're just adopting the common materials framework holistically. It's just too much. There's a lot of information that has been identified in the common materials framework that doesn't have third-party certification or eco labels yet. So how do we find and sort of hone this ask? And so the forums actually created what we're calling the 50 data hotspots, or the 50 factors. So across these 5 impact categories, how do we break it down to the 50 factors of data that we actually want everyone to be thinking about and all manufacturers to be working towards? And so this was the breakdown that enabled us to create an aligned ask for the industry. This aligned ask will be published through in collaboration with all of the forum groups in early 2024. But as the owners and architects can ask the manufacturers, here are the 50 data hotspots that we think is important for you. Can you please work towards completing this information and getting this data that is third-party verified through these third-party certifications? Please make sure that this data is digitized and flows within an interconnected data ecosystem. And then the manufacturers at this time, who are having to fill out spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet and fill out software questionnaires to get their data in various places all at once, they're going to be reaching out to the certification bodies and data management platforms saying, hey, here's the 50 data hotspots that my owners and architects are needing me to obtain and share with them. How can you make this easier for me? How can we digitize the data from the certification bodies and see that flow into an interconnected data ecosystem? The common language and the aligned ask is powerful, but it certainly isn't going to facilitate the wide-scale change we need to actually be able to measure product sustainability in projects if we do not see an ability for that data to flow and be obtainable within an interconnected system. So they also are agreeing that an interconnected system is needed for this aligned ask in a common language to be successful, to enable that world that we're creating. And so Mindful Materials is a neutral nonprofit. We are not a tech company. We've created tech resources to support outputs similar to HBN, to support the industry in achieving their goals. We have and do have currently a portal. This portal is a stepping stone to the future. This is a closed system that's powered by Ecomedes, our SaaS partner. What you can use the portal for right now is to search over 200,000 brands and products by the Common Materials Framework. So if you and your firm want to find out products that address climate health and human health based on the Common Materials Framework, you can go in there and search for products like that at this time. We needed a place for people to interact with the Common Materials Framework and to be able to search by products and brands. This is what the portal can be used for right now. But our ideal world is that we are not creating a solution, a UI UX solution for the marketplace. What we're trying to do is collaborate and bring all of these various entities together to see a world where the common language in an aligned ask and very specific data that is third-party verified is actually flowing throughout the marketplace. So you actually see that the ToxNots of the world and the third-party certifications of the world are actually helping manufacturers digitize and manage their information. That information is then shared into a data hub that is synthesizing and streamlining this information into the common language, the Common Materials Framework. And there's a single API that then can be shared to any tech partner where product decisions are actually being made. And this is the initial start of the interconnected data ecosystem that Mindful Materials is helping to facilitate. Our focus in 2024, not only just with the data hub itself and getting that implemented and starting to make progress, but with the forums as well, we are focusing on, now that we have an aligned ask and an agreement around a common language, how do we actually implement this aligned ask into practice and process? So 2024 for Mindful Materials team is going to be all about implementation. And we see this as the means to close the gap. We need a common language, a convening group of people collaborating, all aligning around the same common ask, driving an interconnected data ecosystem, to be able to actually quantify and measure product level decisions and projects. And we need a lot of education and advocacy. I want to note that one of the biggest outputs of the forum meetings last week that we had was our first inaugural forum meeting. What came out of that to me was we're working very technically with a very specific group of people. We're also trying to educate a wide swath of people so that they feel encouraged that there are going to be solutions to help them make decisions now, but even easier in the future. This is a lot of technical work that we're working with sustainable directors and materials specialists with. But what we need is the industry to endorse this work so that the easy button that has to be based on data and science is possible in the future. So it's this sort of circular approach to getting the easy button. We need the technical people and the companies to endorse this systematic approach is what's going to provide us the solution so that everyone in the future can actually make more sustainable product decisions in every project. Moving forward, Mindful Materials as a nonprofit is very committed to putting on events, supporting education, and driving advocacy so that we can see sustainable materials as the norm and not the option in every project. And so I do want to just note that this is a powerful thing from ThinkLab, and I know we're getting to time here. Just wanting everyone to consider, if you are an architect and designer, you might have already seen this scope, but I always think about the seats that we end up sitting in, the power that we hold. Gina mentioned it as well when she was talking about the 9 planetary boundaries and how horrifying that graphic was to me, seeing it. We have the power to make change by making different decisions. And it doesn't have to be a lot. It can start small. But if you look at the average designer from a top 100 firm has 111 times the purchasing power of impact than an average consumer. Think about the impact you can have by just starting and then expanding your work to help other people expand their work. There's so much we have to do, but there are opportunities for us to make this change, and we have to go down swinging if we're going to go down, is my theory of change right now. And I also just want to acknowledge, because Mindful Materials work that we're doing is a very aggressive timeline, and it is a lot of work that my unicorn team of gritty, excited people are putting together. We need to acknowledge, and this is a conversation that came out from Gina and I in our meeting last week. We know that this has been tried and failed many times before. But the reason some of the efforts of the past have failed is because we did not have collective alignment nor a common language. We did not have enough data that was available and data that we could trust. And we didn't have the technology or the monetary resources to pull off this effort. I'm seeing all of these issues being solved in the collaboration with HBN and Informed and their research and science and data arm, and the Mindful Materials, Common Materials Framework, Interconnected Data Ecosystem work being solved to acknowledge some of these issues that have caused this to fail in the past. And I do want to note that we've obviously been so excited to announce this collaboration that we've been working on. This is just the start. So we've set out, HBN and Mindful Materials are committed to collaborate. We've also set out and agreed upon getting to this reveal and shift by 2025, and then supporting the industry to get to rapid detoxification and decarbonization by 2030. And by 2040, a safe and thriving world. These are timelines and milestones that we are going to be collectively working together. What we need to come out with and what we're going to be working on in 2024 is a map of exactly how. How do these two paths come together, and how are we both supporting simultaneously and then collectively the reveal and shift to get to detoxification and decarbonization? And that will be coming out in 2024, more details to come. And before we get there, we wanted to make sure that people knew how to use these tools collectively. And Alex said it really well in the beginning of this presentation. And want to just end with this slide and open it up for Q&A, because I see the chat kind of going off here as well. So thank you all. And I'm so excited for this partnership and for us to change the world.
I was like, I guess I don't need to silently clap if I'm on here. Thank you both. There are, it's like quiet in the chat, and then all of a sudden there's a flood of questions. So we will get to as many as we can. And then I think anything that we'll try to address along with the recording later this week. I know there's a ton of people on here too who are like excited and want to help and support. I just wanted to, with Annie's slide, and I was thinking about Gina, I appreciate you sharing the idea in your personal experience of starting with one product. And as somebody who's such an advocate of change and using healthier materials, saying like, I didn't always do that, and I started here. And then there's that gateway to where you are now. And so I think it is really, really true that both in terms of time and volume, that can make a huge difference. All right, let's see where we can start. I thought one, maybe if we can kind of go through like a high level example of this. It was a great question about, for example, would you recommend this particular product, right? Which was the Perline Fusion organic roll and tile flooring. And I just was thinking maybe that could be a high level, Gina and then Annie, to kind of talk about like this question of how do we, like, would you recommend it, and how would you go about evaluating that?
Yeah, I threw in the chat. The first thing to start is really understanding what type of a flooring material is that. And I didn't look it up, and I know several of our scientists are on this call, and Jeanette, someone threw in there that it's a bio-based polyurethane. And so knowing that, I don't know if Jeanette, you want to take this one and where it lands and how to.
And I think the specific recommendation or not, I was thinking sort of just about the process, right? So starting with Informed, and maybe it's really, understanding the material type, feeding that into Informed.
I'm saying know your type and know the color. And if it's red, don't go there. If it's, orange, it's better. But if it's in the yellow to above yellow, you nailed it. You got it. Even if you don't find an HPD or you can't find other things, you have made a solid decision. I was skeptical about that when I first came, because I was trying to look for the parts per million and what if this one chemical is out, and we have to understand these as a sweeping change. So if you want to go on to the next level, absolutely find that piece. But if it's red, it's going to be red if you find your information on the specific product anyway.
And then Annie, could you speak to, you know, if we're trying to make these more sweeping changes, but there's also manufacturers doing work and getting these certifications beyond making that initial decision, what is the importance of the CMF and making decisions off of that afterwards?
So what the CMF is going to provide is a holistic view on how the third-party certifications and data that manufacturer has had, how does that relate into those 5 impact categories, and what third-party certifications they have. So I think that's going to be really good. You will be able to take the understanding where it falls on this sort of color schema, and then you can actually go and look for by brand, what is the sort of holistic product detail, sort of the nutrition label, if you will, of the environmental impacts and the human health impacts of that product, across the common language in those 5 impact categories. So how do those certifications roll up into impact, and be able to understand that? I do want to note, Alex, actually, a part of this question is important. Mindful Materials is not set out to be a decision-making schema. And that's why it's very important for Informed and Mindful Materials to work together. We are creating an aligned dance through common language and interconnected data ecosystem. What needs to be built on top of our work is a decision-making schema. And so this is where the world can map together at some point in time, but we need enough data of quality and quantity in an organized format for that to actually be able to be built and be successful. So this is the foundation for decision-making to be made, but we are a map. We are not the decision-making schema.
Yes, we are what will also help something like an Informed to then eventually, you know, connect across all of these tools and make sure that sustainability is showing up everywhere in those different tools. And I think, you know, coming back to what I was talking about at the beginning, Informed exists to help make decisions earlier and also fill a lot of these data gaps that are out there. And also some of these data gaps are out there because we have a lot of information, but we can't access it and it's not being connected. And so it is sort of this virtuous cycle, in addition. Let me grab another. Annie, you spoke to these priority data points quickly because we just have a minute here. Are those priority data points aligned with LEED, for example? Could you speak to that?
Lovely question, Alex, because we are also announcing partnerships in collaboration and alignment with the USGBC, AIA, IWBI, and ILFI in their next versions of their rating systems or within their tools that they're creating. We did announce that at Greenbuild, but we will be having a press release defining sort of what does that mean to have the common materials framework integrate into these rating systems. Our goal is that this common language is used wherever materials decisions are happening. And so that work is coming to fruition, and excited to see LEED version 5 integrate the 5 impact categories, hopefully as it gets released. And I'm saying hopefully just because it hasn't been released yet. So.
And Gina, this is maybe sort of a lighter question, but does HBN give demos or you know, tours of Informed and how to use that for firms that are interested in how to put this into action now?
Yeah, we do 3 sort of things. There's sort of a do it yourself, do it with you, do it for you. So there is this information online and you can go in and play with it. This is just kind of a first push in terms of mapping it to the master format, and you can kick out reports from that. So we'll be working on making improvements together with this crew. We work with folks on contract to do, you know, deeper dives and helping with baselines and recommendations moving forward. So there's a variety of ways. Contact us and we can help you.
Awesome. All right. We have other questions. I think we will kind of go into there, answer those, and try to send that out as part of our summary along with the recording this week. This is very much the the first, certainly not the first webinar we've ever had together, but really the first of a lot of work that we're going to be doing to really dovetail these tools and frameworks and our work together. So we will try to get to these questions now, and I'm really excited for over time a lot of these to be illuminated and have everybody start putting this into practice. So thank you, Gina and Annie and Nicolette and Jen in the background for monitoring the chat and for everybody attending. And we will also make sure you have contact information for any further questions that you have that pop up while you're in the shower tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.